you guys have been advocating for the Second Amendment. You've been very pro Second Amendment in your involvement with us. So my question for you is, should politicians who openly advocate against the Second Amendment be viewed as violating their oath of office?
Ooh. I mean, I would say that the short answer to that is yes. I mean, by definition, right? That they are, they have agreed to that oath to follow the Constitution, and they're going against that. Now they're going to argue that there's things that are open to interpretation, but are they really? Because what I see a lot of times, especially when you're looking at politics, is that we get away from sort of the core issue. And I think a lot of times when we look at a lot of the gun control legislation and that kind of thing, it's a reactionary thing to try and cure a symptom and not actually find a solution. And I think we see that a lot. And honestly, it's not only from politicians, it's also from folks on either side. I mean, if we want to get, I was thinking about this, like if we want to get really spicy, you want to get really spicy? Let's get spicy. Is that when I look at the 2A community, and as a whole, it's awesome and I appreciate it. And that's one of the main reasons that I enjoy working in it is the people. I'll say, like, from as a person in marketing, it's one of the hardest industries to work in for a lot of reasons, just because, there's so much sort of shadow banning and it's hard to even find a bank that will allow you to, have a company that's even related remotely to firearms. I mean, I ran into that and I'm like, I sell targets, come on, right? But I had to be very selective on those things. But what I think is interesting is that when we look at the 2A community, a lot of times there's can be some kind of backbiting and that kind of thing. But I think what's important is that while you guys are, basically on the front lines and kind of really sort of that quick reactionary force, you guys are in Washington and obviously keeping track when somebody tries to sneak some ridiculousness into some bill, right? It's amazing. And you guys are doing amazing work there. And you're also doing amazing work to like let us know when those things are happening, and it's our job to then mobilize and actually do something about it. And I think what happens sometimes is folks are like, oh, that's not my state, I'm not going to worry about it. You can't do that, right? At some point it's going to come back to us. But I also think about, John, I don't remember if it was you or Kailey who said this, and it really stuck with me. And you were like, everybody at GOA, it's our goal and it's our job that we don't have to do this anymore, that we work ourselves out of a job. And I was like, wow, that's impressive, right? Because that's the end goal. That's what we're trying to do. But when I think about the 2A community, I think that there's a lot of folks who they mean well, but they don't always kind of accomplish what they're trying to do. And the best example I sort of have for that is, when there's like a gun debate, about gun control or whatever, and you get your stereotypical kind of fuddy guy who's just like, shall not be infringed. I'm like, please don't do that. And again, hear me out. He's not wrong. The guy's not wrong. It's just that what he has packed into that statement, those 4 words, he's sitting there thinking about the fact that, that there isn't a question about it. And he's watched his rights eroded and he's done all these things. And the country that he grew up is not what it is now. And, he's watching these things go down. And he knows the history and he knows why the Second Amendment's there, right? But in that moment, when you say that to this person who disagrees with you, they don't know any of that. It doesn't mean anything. And their only takeaway is that, oh, he's some grumpy old bud, right? So I think it's important for us to understand. And what I would say is that the other, the anti-gun gun control folks, they've figured this out. They understand that you have to change hearts and minds, and you need to kind of, the way that you can move things is by changing people's opinion, right? And so by doing that, when, God forbid, a school shooting or whatever happens, right? It makes it really easy for them to go, see, we have to do something, where our side, we have to do more than just say, no, it's in the Constitution, that's it. And again, it is no compromise. And it's the way we should be, right? At its core, it's not wrong. But what I'm saying is I think it's important for us to kind of take a step back and say, all right, we need to be wiser about how we communicate that. We need to be wiser about how we show folks, or really why we believe what we do, because I think there's a lot of demonization, there's a lot of stereotyping, there's a lot of things like that. And the fact that we've gotten to that point, is I think the bigger issue. And it's just to show people no, 2A folks, they're like everybody else. We're moms, we're dads, we go to soccer, we take our kids to soccer practice, we're not monsters. The line I always love is, you care about your guns more than our kids. And I'm like, really? But again, they've been able to get away with that. And I think what we need to do is take a step back and say, all right, hang on, let's rework this conversation. So while you guys in GOA are kind of tip of the spear and dealing with these things that come up, it's our job, as the 2A community to kind of also take a longer game and work on people that we, know in our community and that kind of thing, and change their mind. So at some point, the end goal, again, it's what's the end goal? And the end goal is to get to a point where, some politician goes, yeah, I'm not running on that. That's a losing cause for me. I'm not even going to go there. It's going to take a lot of time. But I think what we tend to do is we tend to always just hyper focus on the immediate thing right at hand. And I think we need to do that, but in parallel, have kind of a longer game play.
Yeah, I think one of the key things there is the anti-gun movement looks at a law or looks at a situation, and they say, well, in 10 years, we think that we can get XYZ. Mm-hmm. And those that are pro-gun kind of plant our flag and say, oh, my state's good, or we're never going to give up that. And so we don't have to work towards education. We don't have to work as hard because it's the status quo. The problem mm-hmm. is we have given up a lot of times places like higher educations, the school system, places where a lot of your formative years take place. And we've not allowed without a fight, but oftentimes we just kind of go, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about that. And that's the exact opposite view of what GOA does and thinks and actually is proactive in. So if not GOA, then our sister organization, GOF, but we're on college campuses providing an alternate viewpoint, sending out speakers to give lectures and have conversations about the Second Amendment in an environment where you're not going to see any pro-gun argument, generally speaking. We're out there with the 2A Adventure Chronicles providing information and stories for kids, talking about the philosophies of the Second Amendment, because we know it's not being taught in schools, and we want to make it available for parents who want to bring 2A education in the home where it should be. And so we want to empower, and we want to create dissonance in their echo chamber so that people are not walking around like little drones saying, oh, well, the Second Amendment is, a privilege. No, it's a right, and it's a constitutionally protected right. It is something that you have that is a natural right. It's endowed by your creator. Like, these are all things that fundamentally we should know as Americans, but we don't. And it's because we've allowed someone else to come in and change the narrative, change the conversation, and stifle education. And that's why it's incumbent upon us as the 2A community to provide those resources. And additionally, we also have to talk about the on-ramp for people into the Second Amendment. And we spend a lot of time at GOA talking about that. We spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about it because it's mission critical. If you can take somebody who is anti-gun and make them gun curious and take them to the range and show them a fun, safe time, and then you turn them into a gun owner, then we can start talking about how to make them into a gun advocate. But you have to start somewhere in getting them interested, getting them involved. And that's why I love what you said at the top of the show, that one of the YouTubers that have most impacted you is Johnny B. Because I think what he does with humor is so vital, because it seems like so oftentimes people who are on the libertarian or conservative side of the aisle, those that traditionally fall in the pro-gun realm, we've often forgotten how to laugh and have a good time. And no one wants to be around people who are super serious and mean or viewed as aggressive, even if they're not that way, just because we forgot how to laugh and have fun and participate with people. And so I love what he does, because if you can get someone to laugh, if you can bring them into the fold, it becomes a powerful opportunity to create some change and to start changing those thoughts and minds in not such a structured way.